And we are also live. We're doubly live. Now we're live on Instagram. There's also a fundraiser I have going for the CDC Foundation because you know what? The CDC is still a reputable source. It's still a reputable source of information. It has good people. There are plenty of good people still at the CDC, even though there's an administration right now that's berserker and bizarre and not very capable of doing much of anything, including brushing the president's hair. That's something that they don't even do. CDC Foundation, that's always good. That's where you should get your information, ladies and gentlemen. If you are enduring this pandemic, much like I am and everyone else in this world, you're not alone. Even though you might be alone, you're not alone. I'm right there with you. But the best sources of information are the CDC, the World Health Organization, all of those kinds of things. So feel free to donate to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Infection Spread. I forget the whole name of it. What's up, Kelsey, Alabama? Just talking about how you can feel free to donate to the CDC Foundation because they are still a reputable source of information during this pandemic. But also, we're going to talk about fantasy films today. And we're going to talk about Labyrinth. We're going to talk about the Neverending Story. We're going to talk about the Neverending Story. We're going to keep talking about the Neverending Story because guess what? It's a never-ending story. We're also going to talk about Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, man. Star Wars is a fantasy film. Hate to break it to y'all, but when people say science fiction, they say, "Oh, like Star Wars?" And I go, "No. Not like Star Wars. Star Wars is straight fantasy." And they're like, "Science fantasy?" I'm like, there's no science. Science doesn't happen in Star Wars. There's futuristic ships. You don't say like medieval fantasy. Maybe you do for Lord of the Rings or something. But no, I don't mean science fiction. Hey, WO88. Hey, Pinder6035. Thank you for joining. Guess what? We're all talking about fantasy films today. What's your favorite fantasy film? And that is fun to say. What is your favorite fun fantasy film? I'd like to know. We also have a chat going over on YouTube Live where you can subscribe to my channel, AristotleFullThrottle.com. Go ahead there. Go there, subscribe. Come back. I'll wait. Even maybe wait to the end of the chat and the Instagram Live video, and then you can go subscribe to AristotleFullThrottle.com. Remember, I'm having a giveaway, guys. I'm going to give stuff away. You might even get something for free for watching the show, like a PS5, because by the time I get to 10,000 subscribers, it's going to be like PS5 time. All right? Nobody's going to want no stinking old PS4. They're going to say, "What are you doing with this ancient piece of technology that I can't even understand how to use? What is this PS4 BS? Give me a PS5." When I get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, that's when I'll give it away. Because it'll probably be out by then. I know it's in development or it's probably shipping from somewhere. I'll give you the straight PS5. Straight up. I'll hand it to you through the mail. So guys, today we're talking about fantasy films. What's your favorite fantasy film? I was just debating that Star Wars is not science anything. People say science fiction, and I go, no. And then they say, well, it's sci-fi fantasy. And I'm like, it's not even, there's no sci. There's no science. There are just riding spaceships like they do ride horses in Conan the Barbarian, which is a fantasy. It's just a fantasy. They just happen to have spaceships instead of horses. They happen to have giant, like, weapons, like catapults. And it's just a fantasy movie. Straight fantasy. Even though they're using all that stuff. You know what's a good one, guys? You ever see Willow? I was rewatching Willow a couple months ago when I got Disney Plus. It's on Disney Plus. It's a Lucasfilm movie. George Lucas came up with that movie. And it's good. It's a pretty fun fantasy movie. You're like, wow, man, George Lucas's brain is extra special because he's got different like ideas about how to create fantasy worlds, build entire worlds. I don't know why they haven't made a sequel to Willow yet. I don't know what Warwick Davis is up to. Maybe Warwick Davis is hanging out with Dionne Warwick, and they're trying to figure out how to put that together. Warwick Davis Dionne Warwick Davis. That's my favorite type of bass guitar. So, very few of you will get that reference. Maybe, perhaps not even anyone. You know who we missed yesterday? We missed Will. Will caught up with us on the replay on YouTube. You can watch these shows every day on the replay on YouTube and catch up. So if you missed it, if you're just joining us now, you could always go over, watch the replay for the next day on Instagram and on YouTube. Fantasy films. You know, I loved Willow. Willow, in the 80s, had a lot of fantasy films. A lot of stuff, a lot of people walking through the forest in movies in the 80s. Because they were like, well, we'll say it's some other dimension. Or we'll say, speaking of another dimension and walking through the woods, I mean, what's his name? Dolph Lundgren. Dolph Lundgren played He-Man. Can you believe that? Probably. I mean, the guy's giant. He's a giant man. That movie was dumb because it was like the 80s and they were like, hey, remember Star Trek 4 was really successful, and what they did was they traveled back in time to the Bay Area to where Starfleet Academy is, but they traveled back to 1987 in the Bay Area. So watch the futuristic Star Trek people interacting with the people on the street. So all that stuff in Star Trek 4 when Captain Kirk is talking to people on the street and Chekhov and Uhura, they actually hid the film camera. The movie Star Trek 4 is directed by Leonard Nimoy, aka Spock. Leonard Nimoy hid the film camera and had all of the people from Star Trek actually literally interact with people on the street and then sign releases. So there's like candid camera. There's a candid camera punked aspect of Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun. I like it. I like it. Anybody know that reference? I'd love to see these as comments. All these random things I throw in there and sprinkle in there. Once we get like thousands of viewers, there's going to be somebody's going to say, I know that line was from Lord of the Rings, Pinder. Good one. Lord of the Rings was a good one because it kind of just rescued us from the terrible prequels, the Star Wars prequels. The Lord of the Rings movies were coming out sort of concurrently. You've had the first Star Wars was like 1999, 2002, and 2005 were the Star Wars prequels releases. And the releases for the Lord of the Rings movies, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, were 3 consecutive years. And I think it was 2000, 2001, 2002. It might have been 99, 2000, 2001. That 3-year era, but we were like watching a terrible Star Wars prequel situation unfolding before our eyes. But at the same time, Peter Jackson was rescuing us all by saying, hey, here's an alternative. Here's the alternative to terrible fantasy. I can make good fantasy movies. And he made The Lord of the Rings into a reality based on the books by J.A.R.A.K.W.X.Y.Z. Tolkien. He made those books. He made them. He made the binding from his own flesh. This is not true. But there was a guy, I remember I went on a field trip in 8th grade to Boston. I'm from the New York area. And we went on a field trip to Boston. And there's a library in Boston where there's a guy who actually he tanned his own skin as a leather hide covering for a book. And there's a book in the Boston Library made of human skin. It puts lotion on its skin, or it gets the holes again. Anybody know what movie that's from? Oh, wait. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of impressions of this guy because a friend of mine really likes when I do an impression of that character. And I get a little creeped out, to be honest, after a couple minutes of doing that voice, which, by the way, is identical to the voice of Mitch McConnell. I'm just going to give this one away. Buffalo Bill. Silence of the Lambs. There you go. You got it. Thank you, Tyrion. 13. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's a super creepy voice, but it's kind of funny if you just keep doing it about everything. It's like, oh, it puts the cream in my coffee. Oh, it puts the cream in my coffee. I don't know. I'll get worked up into it, and it'll be hilarious later. But it's pretty funny. Buffalo Bill, that actor, Ted, he's so good. What's that actor's name? Ted McGinley. Ted Levine. That actor Ted Levine is really good. You know why he's so good? I watched 2 seasons of Monk before I realized he was the police captain. And I was like, oh, that's Buffalo Bill. 2 seasons into Monk. Oh, it puts the lotion in the basket. It's so creepy. What a brilliant portrayal, though. But I am getting off the topic of fantasy film. Even though Silence of the Lambs is kind of a... No, it's not a fantasy film. It's a psych that way. I see I've got 2 concurrent viewers over... whole concurrent viewers over on YouTube, and I appreciate both of you. However, I only have 1 like on YouTube, so if that number matches that number, that would be 2 and 2 would be wonderful, because that would help a lot. Thank you. Oh, you know what I like to do here on Aristotle Full Throttle is just be real. You know what? We're all real. We're all real people dealing with a situation. We're all dealing with each other. What's your situation like in your quarantine? Are you quarantined with somebody? Do you wish you weren't? Are you happy that you're with somebody even though you want to, like, maybe, you know, throw them down a well and have them rub lotion on their skin? Good God. I started a bad meme for today. Now I'm going to have to keep referencing it because eventually it'll get funny. That's what they teach you in improv school, guys. That's the lessons. At first it's not funny. The second time it's not funny. The third time it's not funny. The fourth time it's not funny. And then suddenly, around like the 27th time, something can get hilarious. To the point where it's hilarious and then it's not funny anymore. That's what we're going to talk about Monday, about series. Film series that started out awesome, started to really suck, and then got good. And TV series too. We'll include TV in this one too, because there's a lot of shows where they start out real strong and then they suck and then they get good again. Like Battlestar Galactica. Several seasons of amazing, and then the first half of the 4th season it sucked. Lost. Remember Lost? Another kind of fantasy show. Choking. If I choke, just give me the Heimlich maneuver. Thank you. Yeah, see, 13 is like, I've been social distancing for years, so I don't have a problem with it. That's true. Me too. Except, I do like social closeness, except, I don't know, there's a lot of people I'd rather not be around, so this is actually pretty good. Not that I'd be forced around somebody, but I don't know, there's something nice about going, you know what, I don't even ever have to see that person again. You know what, guys, we like to be real here on Aristotle Full Throttle, and if there's somebody in your life that you don't like, you don't want to be around them, just remember this. F them. No, I'm just kidding. Just remember this. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. That's a rule. That's a hard and fast rule. It's not a hard and fast rule. There are no hard and fast rules, but there is a truism to life, which is, guess what? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do ever. So just be kind and work hard. And if somebody says, hey, do this thing that you don't want to do, you can say no. Hey, Christine Barger, official. Christine is a friend of mine. She is a very talented lady. She's a puppeteer and a TikToker. And she does like lots of fun stuff, and it's very funny. So you guys should follow her too. Christine, we're talking about fantastical films today, and I bet you want to bring up Labyrinth, because Labyrinth also has puppets in it, and a Bowie named David in there. There's so much going on in Labyrinth. It's also got, interestingly enough, Jennifer Connelly, who's coming out in the new Top Gun movie. She's going to be in the... I don't know if she's coming out, but she's going to be in it. She's going to be in the new Top Gun movie. She's going to play Tom Cruise's girlfriend, because Kelly McGillis, I don't know what happened to Kelly McGillis. She got her breath taken away, and then that was it. You like the hands. Oh, the hands, the Michael Motion hands. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like with Labyrinth, with the hands and the crystal balls all moving around, David Bowie's hands. Those aren't David Bowie's hands. There's a performance artist named Michael Mochen, Mochen, and he is an incredible performance juggler. He's a juggler, I would say, but he also turns it into performance art. But a lot of people maybe don't know this, but juggling doesn't include just tossing balls in the air, but it's also like moving balls around your body. It's also considered part of juggling. So he takes crystal balls and stacks them and then moves them in all sorts of ways and rolls them over his body and like bounces tennis balls in these weird structures so that they bounce off all the walls and you can catch them and throw them. Michael Mochen, check that guy out. You know what I might have? It's on Monday maybe. Maybe I'll have a visual aid with me, maybe like a laptop where I can hold up and I could show you some videos of stuff that I'm referencing. But that's pretty rad. We do this every day at noon, ladies and gentlemen. Aristotle Full Throttle at noon every day, weekday, usually. Take the weekends off, have a couple days for yourself. Just take a little nap, put your feet up. I'm getting a call. Getting a call. Let me reply to that person real quick. YouTubing. Yeah. Let's see. Neverending Story. Yes, Tatiana Wilkinson. Thank you for joining us. And Popcorn Passport. We do this every day at noon. Aristotle Full Throttle. 5 days a week. Talking today about fantasy films. And you bring up a great one, Tatiana. The Neverending Story. It's never ending. Still going on right now. Bastian is in some attic somewhere reading that book. It never ends. How do you set up the donate button on IG Live? That's a good question, Christine. Perhaps we could talk about that. There's a setting. You go inside the settings, and then you push, set up your settings, and then you push the setup, and then there's a settings button, and then it says settings, and you hit settings. Once you hit settings, there's a drop-down menu with all these settings, and you hit the setting for it, and then there you go. She's not talking about the crystal ball hands. Oh, yeah, I know which hands you're talking about. You're talking about In the Hallway. If anybody can name that movie, let me know, because I forget. I feel like it's a sequel to, some witch movie, to Return to Oz or something. The hand tunnel she falls down. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I do remember David Bowie in it doing this dance move. I'm David Bowie. He goes like this. Oh yeah, Jonathan Brandis. 13 brings up Jonathan Brandis is in the sequel to the Neverending Story movies, actually. Yeah, Jonathan Brandis, man, that guy lived a life and a half and died at the age of 8.5. I don't know, how old was he when he died? Return to Oz. Yes, Return to Oz. Thank you. Yeah. So I was right. I was thinking the right movie. That's creepy. That was creepy. How about that movie, huh? Yeah, that'll scar you for life. Jonathan Brandis was in the sequels to the Neverending Story. I saw the Neverending Story when I was very young, at the right age. And there's something so beautifully fantastical about it, even in the sense that the movie was produced and filmed, I think, in Sweden. I forget. But I know some of the actors did not speak English. And so there's a lot of overdubbing. Remember the guy who rides the snail? Remember that guy with the hat? He was like, bro, okay, Atreyu. And his mouth would move differently from his face and stuff. That was interesting. Wolfgang Petersen did that. This is hilarious. I'm reading the credits of this. And this is no joke. I'm not even joking you right now. Listen to this. Wolfgang Petersen is the director of the Neverending Story. The story, okay, now this is going to blow your mind right now because my mind is blown. The story for the Neverending Story was written by a guy named Michael Ende. Ende. The story is by a guy named End. The never-ending story. How does that happen? How did that happen? How is that even possible? Michael End wrote the Neverending Story. That doesn't even make any sense. You know that guy Barrett Oliver who played Bastian? He grew up to be a photography film professor. He's got a giant beard, almost like my beard. My beard is just, I'm not even bothering trying to chop it off. But he got a giant beard now. You would never recognize him unless, you were like, say your mother's name. Do you guys remember what his mother's name is? He's got to give her a name. Remember, he's got to give the princess a name. So what name does he give? That's the first person. I'm gonna give you a high five. Do you guys remember what Bastian's mother's name was? He had to save the whole Eternia or whatever it's called. No, Eternia's from He-Man. My bad. Where was the place called that the Neverending Story takes place? New Jersey? Hoboken? I forget. Frankenweenie? No, that's another movie. Neverending Story takes place in the South Bronx. They should redo it. Oh, Tatiana said you met the actor who played Atreyu. He's grumpy. LOL. That's funny that you bring that up, Tatiana. Here's the thing that I always say. Don't be a dick. The Neverending Story is no, I say that because this is why I always say that. Don't be a dick. Be kind, work hard, be a good person to those around you. There's a thing in life called being nice and human. Popcorn Passport wins the high five. Here you go, Popcorn Passport. Popcorn Passport correctly identified the name of Bastian's mother and also subsequently the name of the princess of Eternia in the Neverending Story. Moonchild. Moonchild. He sticks his head out the window. Moonchild. I could not understand it ever. I had to grow up and read the book to see that he was shouting Moonchild. I could not ever understand what he was saying. But this is what I always say, people. Don't be a dick, because when you meet people in life, what is the only thing you ever say about when you meet a celebrity or somebody? What is the only thing you ever hear? They're like, yeah, I met Tom Cruise and XYZ. I met Michael Jackson, and I don't want to hear about that story, but people could also be like, I met so-and-so. I met Anne Hathaway. I met so-and-so. You know what they say? Oh, they were nice. Or they say, they were grumpy, like Tatiana said about the guy who played Atreyu. Or they were a jerk, as if they were nice or not. I think this is one fact, true thing about life. I met Wolfgang Peterson. He was a dick. That's always the second sentence after you met somebody. How they worked, how they treated you. So you got to treat people nice, man. You just always got to treat people nice, and just have a high expectation and a high. And if people don't treat you good, kick them to the curb. Because guess what? You ain't gotta deal with anything you don't want to deal with. If Wolfgang Peterson, if you said I met Donald Trump, and boy was he delightful. That's what people would say. They never say, I met Donald Trump, and I think his economic policy was great. No, there's always an intermediate sentence. I met Donald Trump, and he was a completely inept idiot to me, and he was mean and rude. Or he was really nice. Donald Trump was really nice to me, interestingly enough. I met Nickelback. They were a bunch of cool guys. It's very true. This is the truest thing you'll hear all this entire hour, probably. Other than E equals MC squared. Guys, Moonchild. It was a Comic-Con back in the 2000s. He signed a picture and he was so over it. Yeah, Tatiana. See, what he needs to do is realize that every single person, she's talking about the actor who played Atreyu, Noah Hathaway. He needs to recognize that his entire life, his livelihood to this day is dependent on a lot of the earlier work that guy did, including Family Ties. He was on an episode of Family Ties. It's nothing to shake a stick at. That dude needs to be like, hey, I would like to engage you for this brief moment and say how much I recognize and appreciate your recognition and appreciation of my career. And, let's be friends and go on a date. That's what he should say to every single person. He should say, listen, I'd like to cook you dinner tonight. I always betray you. But tonight, I am not only your lover, but your best friend. And that is that's what I think all actors owe their fans. Hulk Hogan was a bona fide Richard. Wait, what's the smaller name for Richard? Oh, Hulk Hogan. Terry Bollea. That dude, I'm going to tell you though, Hulk Hogan, people see, this is what happens too. When you tell somebody, like, I met your hero, they were a jerk to me. People be like, yeah, but he body slammed Andre the Giant. That was crazy. Did you see that? They're just going to come back with that. They're just going to come back straight up with that. They'd be like, I met Donald Trump and he was a total dick to me. Yeah, but his economic policy though. See, that's the thing. That's the problem. You're going to have to combat the people who are going to be like, they're not even going to care about your experience, your personal experience with this person. They're not even going to weigh in on the fact that, hey, perhaps my dreams were shattered when I met them. That's why I don't like to meet my heroes. I don't want to meet my favorite heroes in the world. Like I never, ever want to meet Paul Rubens. Just kidding. Pee Wee Herman, that is. I do, though. Actually, I don't know. I heard he's nice. That's all you ever hear about anybody. Whether they're nice or not. It's true. Fantasy films. Deep Roy played the guy on, he's 63. That dude, he played the guy. He was also, I believe, in the Willy Wonka, the Chocolate Factory movie. The Chocolate Factory movie that Tim Burton directed about 15 years ago. Deep Roy. He was the dude on the snail with the hat, the top hat, in the Neverending Story, remember? And he was like, everybody was overdubbed. Oh, you know what freaked me out about the Neverending Story was when that wolf was like dying, and he's like, oh, I'm dying, I'm a wolf. In a cave, and it's like the nothing, man. There's nothing everywhere. Everything's happening. I'm paraphrasing. And he was like, oh, this is a pain. I'm going to die. But guess what? I'm still going to eat you because I'm a wolf. I already talked about the Scorpion and the Frog the other day this week. That was saying how, like, he's like, I'm still a wolf, bro. I'm still going to try to eat you. But Atreyu straight, like, ganked him, killed him, murdered him. Big Alice in Wonderland fan. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. You know what? The Alice in Wonderland movie, I didn't see the Alice in is the Alice in Wonderland, is that the Tim Burton one? Or did he do like, oh, you know, Sam Raimi did the sequel to The Wizard of Oz. But yeah, Alice in Wonderland, there's like a few of those movies, right? I think there's the ones that Tim Burton did. When there's a very famous existing story for generations and generations, and then we go, hey, why don't we make a sequel to it? Remember Cinderella at the end when she goes to the ball and she becomes the princess, and then they live happily ever after? Well, get this. Cinderella Part 2. Her shoe breaks, and we just do the whole movie again. That's how Hollywood works. That Hollywood's like, hey, you know what's better than one movie making $1 billion? 2 movies making $2 billion. Money talks. But then you could argue, hey, people want to see it. Ooh, Alice Through the Looking Glass, though, got 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes score is interesting to me because I think there's a weird sweet spot on that percentage Metacritic score. I think if it's over 95%, I'm like, yeah, I'm not that tempted to see something. If something is like 88% to 93%, I'm like, I'll probably like it. But then anything below 88% down to about 68%, I'm like, man, it's just probably gonna. I found that the movies that I see are within that range. I go, yeah, I didn't really like it. I was kind of bored. But then there's a sweet spot between about 46% and 66%, where I have loved movies that are in that range. So I feel like that's a sweet spot where I go, hey, half of the people hated this movie. Maybe I'm among the half that loves it. Gerald McCraney. Remember that guy? Gerald McCranium. You know the gal who dates him currently, and yeah, he seems grumpy. See, Kelsey knows Noah Hathaway's girlfriend. And guess what, man? What's he got to be grumpy about? If I had his career, I'd be like, hey, remember me? I was a Treyu. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll clean your windows. It's okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm DJing tonight if you want to come see my set. I was a Treyu. That's what I would be like. The critic score or audience score, Judella19 asks, it depends. The critic score, I think, is pretty universally like unilateral. I'd say it's the audience score that I'm thinking about. But also you could also smush those scores together and average them and then try to figure out all sorts of other math. But the Metacritic score is I don't know. I feel like every time there's a movie that's out that has a close to 100% critical rating, there's always these one or two dissenters who are like, nah, I didn't like it. Everyone liked it. And my favorite review, and I've gotten a few of these, kind of reviews myself as a musician on my albums, which are, everyone likes it. And I see why everyone likes it. Because it's really likable and it's actually pretty good. But I don't like it. This is a dumb review. That is a dumb... It's okay. It's like, listen, you've got your platform. You could say what you want. Fine. But you've literally said nothing bad. I had a review, and I'm going to talk about me a little bit right now. But I had an album come out, my first album, with the band I was in, and they were like, everybody in this band, they're good musicians. The songs are really good, and sure enough, you'll hear them on the radio. And that was a negative review. I'll take it. Anyway, let me find that review. No, it's okay. No, I want to find it. Because it's hilarious. Maybe I'll read that some other time. Here we go. Yeah, here it is. Oh, wait. There's a line. There's not a single thing here we haven't heard 100 times before. Thank you, guys. All right. I guess you got to believe the bad ones if you want to believe the good ones, too. That's also an important lesson here, guys, that we're learning today. If people say the bad things and you gravitate toward the bad things, or you gravitate toward the good things and you only want to hear the good things, then you say, well, you got to believe the bad things and the good things. Still, 4 out of 5. That's a pretty good review. Thank you very much for the 4 out of 5. Critics score or audience score. The Golden Child. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, yeah. Popcorn Passport. You're bringing up some really good ones here. The Golden Child. Robot Jocks. I remember that one. Robot Jocks. That was a fantastical movie. That movie, they put these people inside. It's basically Pacific Rim. It's Pacific Rim. You put the guy inside the robot the giant robot, and then they fight each other. Because that, thank you for the donation. That goes straight to the CDC. The CDC is a good foundation. They're actually filled with hardworking people and scientists who are helping to try to stem the tide of this horrible pandemic. This pandemic is hopefully going to... We don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But I think it's funny that sometimes people are like, hey, you guys, guess what's going to happen during this pandemic? Nobody knows. The problem with like assuming is they say, well, this many people will die. Like 100,000 people will die if we don't stay inside. And then everybody kind of stays inside, and then only 60,000 people die. And then they go, well, I thought you said 100,000 people were going to die. It's like, yeah, because you stayed in, only 60,000 people died. So there's like this weird backward logic to a lot of people going, why are we staying in when you said it's because staying in is what saved 40,000 lives. But it's really difficult to express concepts to people. This is what I found in life. But guess what? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like, within reason. Robot Jocks, that was a fantastic movie. The Golden Child was great because it had Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy was pretty much the Golden Child of the 80s. I don't know if you guys had seen Eddie Murphy in the 80s, but he was on fire. And then I think he went straight up through those movies, the Nutty Professor movies, which are kind of fantastical movies. They're fantasy comedy movies, I guess. And definitely Dr. Dolittle is fantasy. But he did those movies, and I think those were the last funny movies that Eddie Murphy did. Maybe Bowfinger. Epidemiologist. Armchair epidemiologist, my favorite. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, those are the people that are they're like, this is what's going to happen. Let me tell you. You can never find out what's going to happen. You just got to do the best you can. Wash your hands. Stay inside. Avoid contact with others. Remember that the mask, the face covering, it's not a protection of spreading. It stems the transmission if you have COVID-19 of the coronavirus to someone else, but it's not instead of the social physical distancing. It's in addition to. So still, if you're talking to someone, 6 feet, mask and 6 feet, mask plus 6 feet. If we could do that, and that is like the very least you can do, the very least. And the most is avoid contact with people altogether. But if you could just do that, maybe like you put your arm out and they put their arm out, and then you just like barely, you're like still, there's maybe a foot between that's 6 feet, guys. I mean, I got long arms though, so my arms are 6 feet each, but it's not that far. It's just you're standing that close. I mean, come on. I don't understand. I see people, they're out there, they're going, yeah, we were hanging out, but we were social distancing, but we were hanging out, and we had people over, but it was like a social distance party. Like we were partying, but we were like social distance. Like people are just using it as a hashtag in life. They like feel like they have to tag everything they say. My favorite is when you go on Instagram and people post a picture of them at a party, and they have to, or else they'll get social distance shamed. They have to write some kind of quote that's like, oh, remember when we could go hang out places? This was before the dark times. Or they always have to write, oh, wouldn't it be nice to hang out? It's like, no, why don't you promote things you can do in solitude, in isolation? Promote the things and show that you are. Give a good example of certain things you can do to pass the time and be productive alone in isolation. Like, I don't know, every day at noon, do a live stream on AristotleFullThrottle.com 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, Pacific Standard Time. Why don't you try that? Why don't you say, hey, look, here's a constructive thing you can do with your time. Let's not all necessarily... look, I'm being very harsh. I get it. It's nice to think about the times when we could all hang out. and it'll happen again. We just have to be like promoting what it's like to be chill and be okay with what we're dealing with. The Dark Crystal. Tatiana, you're running away with it. You're running away with it. That Dark Crystal, man. Jim Henson wanted to, and they brought back the Dark Crystal for Netflix. It's on Netflix now, and it's a whole new show. And I started watching it, and I was like tripping out, man. I was freaking out. I'm like, this is weird. I love it. I'm freaked out by these weird people, but it's very in line with what Jim Henson's vision was in the 80s when Jim Henson decided to make his own production company. I think Henson Studios, they made Dark Crystal. And it's just creepy. And a lot of people don't give kids credit because kids can handle a lot more than people think. People go, hey, isn't that movie too dark, Crystal, for a kid? And you say, no, kids can handle it. They might get a little freaked out. They might get a little inspired. Kids can deal with this. This is how they form character. Kids get character, personality. You gotta make them watch Silence of the Lambs when they're 7. Jackie Chan, Armor of God, so good. The Asian Indiana Jones. Jackie Chan is a genius. That's all there is to it. Jackie Chan changed everything. Jackie Chan was like, I will destroy my own body for your entertainment. And I salute him for that. Jackie Chan, there's different types of geniuses. There's math geniuses who go like this and they can add up all the numbers in their head. There's like artistic geniuses with paints. They can make a painting like Picasso in 2 seconds. He's done. I mean, sometimes it looks like it took him 2 seconds, but it's beautiful. Jackie Chan is like a kung fu, like physical 3-dimensional genius. This guy could do flips. He could jump through ladders. Don't believe me? Well, look at his video. He can run on top of trains. He can jump and grab things. He times things so perfectly and does all of those stunts in camera, jumping through like little holes in the wall. Guy's a genius. Imagine they made a Dark Crystal sequel with Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is so beat up from all those. It's pretty remarkable how he's put his body through the mill. Stunt people need to get more recognition in Hollywood. There needs to be a category for best stunt person at the Oscars. There needs to be 2 more categories. Here are the categories that they should do. Best stunt team, best stunt performance. People need to get nominated for doing all of the stuff that the actor won't do and the stuff that gets caught on film, because stunt people really, they inspire me, because the actor will say, hey, can't we just get the stunt person to do this? And then the stunt person comes in, the stunt lady, and she'll be like, I'll do this. And then they ask the stunt lady, so when you fall off the roof onto the ground, how is it that you, what is it that you're doing? How do you do that? And then she'll be like, well, when I'm on the roof, I throw my body off it and I'll hit the ground. So they do this for your entertainment. The people are like, wait, no, so let me get this straight. So listen, stunt lady, when you're on the roof and then you're rolling off the roof and then you hit the ground, what is it that, what's the secret to that? And she's like, well, I start rolling and then I fall 10 feet and I hit the ground. That's how I do it. So guys, do not take it lightly what these stunt people put themselves through. It's insane. It's insanity. Maybe they have some pads on, but they're still busting their bodies up and breaking legs and breaking all these kinds of bones. And they spend half their life in the freaking hospital recovering. It's kind of crazy. They're real life Evel Knievels, even though Evel Knievel was a real life Evel Knievel. And Evel Knievel's nephew, Neville Knievel, he's an accountant. The 13th Warrior cast a deadly spell, Remo Williams. Jackie Chan is the coolest. Definitely the coolest. I'm just reading these comments as they're coming, as all these guys, you guys are great. I have to cheers you guys for being awesome. You're all showing up, you're all coming out, you're turning out. People are donating to the CDC Foundation. on my Instagram feed. This is awesome. You're all fantastical. Fantastical. Like the subject of today's talk. Fantasy films. So we've talked about The Dark Crystal. We talked about Labyrinth. We talked about The Neverending Story. Lord of the Rings. Have we brought up Legend? Has anybody talked about Legend? Legend is legend. It's pretty good. It was Ridley Scott, Tom Cruise. Here's a funny thing about the movie Legend is part of the movie was filmed when Tom Cruise was going like through puberty. So he's very young looking in parts of the movie, but there was about an 18-month spread of the filming of this movie. So there are other parts where Tom Cruise's voice changes and he's got like facial hair. So there's depending on what scene you're watching, Tom Cruise is either like a baby child, or he's an adult man. Just the way they cut back and forth. It's pretty funny if you watch that movie now. Ridley Scott, man, that guy can really build worlds. Fantasy films. I'm going to Google fantasy films, and we're going to see what comes up first. It's probably Lord of the Rings. Onward, I didn't see that yet. Oh, look, Avengers Endgame, fantasy. I guess technically all of the Marvel movies are fantasy movies. Krull. Anybody? Anyone? Any takers for Krull? Krull was fantastical. That was fun. That was very 80s. I love that you could tell what decade a movie was made, even if it's a completely out of time, fantastical backdrop, like Krull, which is kind of this weird alternate universe of medieval times. There's always a lot of medieval imagery in some of these fantasy movies, but with technology that should be outside of their scope, but usually it's powered by magic. But you could definitely tell Krull was made in the 80s by their haircuts. People's haircuts, man, that gives it away. You're like, this movie could have taken place at any time, except why does He-Man have a mullet? Because it was 1987. That's why. Oh. Willow. Superman. Yeah, you could always tell what's going on. It doesn't matter. The facial hair and hair, it's Star Wars. I love that even today when they make a Star Wars movie, they have to give everybody like 70s sideburns or a ill-suited mustache, because it was the 70s when Star Wars was made and they needed extras. So they said, hey, all of you people from the 70s, I don't know if they said that back in the 70s, but they were like, hey, groups of people around me, you should be in this movie in the background. Don't bother shaving or getting your hair cut. It'll be fine. Your mustache can fit any time period. And then you've got characters like in Rogue One with weird mustaches, because even though Rogue One was made a few years ago, they're like, well, it's got to match the style of Star Wars. And everyone has to have a shaggy haircut and weird facial hair. Val Kilmer. I like that you just throw Val Kilmer out there. Val Kilmer was in The Island of Dr. Moreau. That's fantasy. Val Kilmer was also in Willow. Val Kilmer played the guy. His wife at the time, Joanne Wally Kilmer, was in that movie too, and she played like his love. He played her love interest in that movie, which is interesting. Except they got divorced. What do you think, guys, about when actors take their spouse's name? Because a lot of times actors will then get divorced and then have spent half their career with the name of their spouse. For instance, Robin Wright. Robin Wright became Robin Wright Penn when she was married to Sean Penn. When she inherited the Bic Penn empire. No, when she was married to Sean Penn. And Robin Wright Penn was Robin Wright Penn. She was Robin Wright, and then she was like Robin Wrong for a minute, and then she was Robin Wright again. And then She's a force of nature. She's crazy good. She needs to be recognized a little bit more. Robin Wright Penn. Val Kilmer in Willow. Very good movie. I enjoyed Willow. Guys, it's on Disney Plus if you want to catch up on Willow and didn't know that Willow was a movie. It's actually a really fun, fantastical, fun movie. It's the first movie with the special effects called morphing. There's 2 movies with computer effects. There's a movie called Young Sherlock Holmes, and it had computer effects where they took a stained glass window and made it come to life. And then Willow, which used morphing. So the lady morphs from all these different animals into back into her human form in the movie. And it looks really good. Edward Scissorhands is one of my favorite fantasy movies. Thank you, Tatiana, for bringing that up. That is a fun movie. It's just a nice little cute story. It's a once upon a time type of story where you got a guy, and listen, he's got scissors for hands. Don't say anything about his hands, all right? He's fine. He's a nice young man. He happens to have scissors for hands. Just watch out for the scissors, okay? I love it. And everybody kind of acts normal around him, and it's the perfect story of how everybody, it's kind of like, it's a very true to human behavior type of story where you go, hey, you're nice, I like you, and then for some reason he gets villainized at some point and becomes like Frankenstein's monster, basically. And everybody who liked him in the beginning starts to spread rumors, and the toxicity spreads, and guess what? He remains unchanged. Edward Scissorhands remains a good person. He was as nice as the day you met him. However, everybody demonizes, villainizes, and scapegoats him and makes him the bad guy, even though all he wants to do is give you a nice haircut and trim your hedges. It's pretty shocking. But then he loses it, man. He starts poking holes in that waterbed. It's nuts. The Princess Bride. How can we go through this discussion about fantasy films without mentioning The Princess Bride, which is probably the most fun and enduring story from that year. That movie is really great. I love The Princess Bride. I love that movie is introduced in such a way. Peter Falk is in it, and Peter Falk is one of my favorite actors. He played Columbo. He's an incredible actor who's in a lot of John Cassavetes films. He is not with us anymore, but he was a great guy. Or I don't know how good he was. I never met him, but he was a great, fantastic actor, and he plays Fred Savage's grandfather in The Princess Bride. And that was like when I was a little boy. When you're a boy and you're following like the whole gender normative society, and you hear there's a movie called The Princess Bride, and you're a young boy, you're like, I don't want to watch no movie about it. And he says, I'm going to read you a story called The Princess Bride. And that little boy, like I was a little boy at the time, he's like, I don't want to hear no story about no Princess Bride. And then, of course, what it does is it shatters our idea of gender roles and gender normativity and makes us go, hey, it's okay. It's a good story that everyone can relate to, and it's fun, and it's a love story, and just destroy all your preconceived notions about gender norms, and let it go, let it go, let it go. Frozen. That song is by Adele Dazeem. Thank you, guys, for tuning in every day this week. And for the last, I think, 4 weeks. This has been the end of the 3rd or 4th week. I can't keep count anymore. There's no record other than the fact that these are all saved on my channel. You guys can watch these every day. You can have them on the background. You could brush your teeth listening to Aristotle Full Throttle. You could do whatever you like. Or, if we learned anything today, you don't have to do anything you don't like. This is my lesson This is just the message, the theme of today. Do the things you like, do the things you want to do, and don't do the things you don't want to do. And if you meet Atreyu from the Neverending Story and he's a dick to you, you could be like, psh, get out my face, Atreyu. I don't need you. You can go take a long walk. You tell him that. Andrew the Giant. Yeah, there's so much good stuff in Princess Bride. Andre the Giant was so good because he is fantastically big. I love Inigo Montoya, that whole character. That character is like, that's such a heartbreaking story, but so good at the same time. his whole life. He says, I've been waiting to meet the man with the seven fingers and say, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. It's such a good thing. And then when that moment comes in the movie, oh man, boy, does it like, it's like sort of heartbreaking at first, but then incredibly satisfying. The movie hits all the right buttons. The Princess Bride wins. The Princess Bride is the best fantasy movie ever, besides Krull. Only third in line behind Blade Runner. Popcorn Passport, you are awesome. You are a long-time subscriber, and I appreciate you. You guys who have been watching the show for the years that I've been doing the show, you know, it really inspires me. It uplifts me. It helps me feel happy. And I hope that I can help bring some kind of, maybe like a half smirk to your face at some point during the show. You might have to wait a long time for it to happen. But if I say something that just kind of tickles you and like on the side a little bit, and then you're like, that guy said something that was, I see what he did there. That just makes me, that tickles me and delights me. Thank you for humoring yourself and me. Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. Have fun storming the castle. So good. It tickles me that you guys are here. If you guys want to, if you find it in your heart to help support my channel, you can go to Aristotle Full Throttle on Patreon. So patreon.com/Aristotle Full Throttle. And you can pledge $1, $2, $10, $1 billion a month to my channel, which would help keep things afloat. We are in a pandemic, and I hope that you are all staying safe, staying home, and also trying to do what you can do to get by. This is what I do to get by. So it's fun for me. I enjoy it. I enjoy you. I enjoy spending my time with you, and I enjoy this time together. So if you guys find it in your bank account to send me $1 a month, that would be great. That would be awesome. It would help support, keep the lights on, really. And we can continue these discussions daily. Krull, man, there's a Cyclops in Krull, but it was the special effects in the 80s were not good. 1983, pretty good for 1983, to be honest. 1984 was Dune. Dune is also a great fantasy film. Awesome, Tatiana. I appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. You've giggled. You know, the goal is to leave everyone a little bit maybe more tickled than I found them. So, but not in an inappropriate Michael Jackson type of way. Sorry I brought that up. It probably made everybody have a sour feeling for a half a second. Sorry about that. I take it back. R. Kelly. No, kidding. R. Kelly is a horrible victimizer of humans. He needs to go to jail forever. I would like to be the Pee Wee Herman. Oh, I don't know. I can't pick a good a good example. Buffalo Bill? Have we talked about Buffalo Bill? Plenty. Sorry, guys, on Instagram. I will be the Buffalo Bill of laughter for you. 5 days a week, every day on Aristotle Full Throttle. We've got 30 seconds remaining on Instagram. I will see you guys on Monday on Instagram. If you want to jump over to AristotleFullThrottle.com, you can subscribe there and watch the remainder of this show, which will be good for a few more minutes while we wrap it up and talk about other fantastical fantasy films that are really enjoyable from this just fun. Anyway, guys, Instagram, Aristotle Full Throttle. Oh, my Instagram always craps out too prematurely. But hey, guys, they're gone. We could talk about what we really wanted to talk about, which was the secret society of the Masons. I'm glad that we're all here. We're the Skull and Bones crew. We're going to come together, and we're going to actually restructure the entire... We are the Illuminati. Little do they know that we spend all of our time pretending not to be the Illuminati. And what a waste of time that is, seemingly. But it's all a part of our ruse. But I don't know, it is kind of fun to talk about fantasy films. You know, there's a movie. There's all kinds of fun fantasy films. Did you see The Boy Who Could Fly? That's a subtle fantasy film. I haven't seen that one in a while. Guys on YouTube, remember to like the video if you can. Just press the like button. That would be very rewarding. Yeah, sorry, Tatiana. I did go off on a weird tangent, but I think it's worth it. It's so funny when you talk and you gotta just keep talking. There's a thing that happens is people say things that later on they go, "Did you hear what they said completely out of context after 3 hours of talking?" That they should be ridiculed for that. And then you go, "Wait a minute, what were they saying hours before that? What were they saying leading up to that? What was the thing that they actually were saying?" And a lot of times people take it out of context and they get it all wrong. But that's fine. The Matrix. How did we not talk about the Matrix for this whole hour? Yeah. I do love I do love the Goonies. It feels almost fantastic. It is a fun adventure. Oh, Explorers. Have you guys seen the movie Explorers? That's a really fun one. Explorers with Ethan Hawke, little baby Ethan Hawke, little baby River Phoenix, little baby other guy that didn't have much of a career after that. I love that movie. Aladdin, fantasy film. There's a lot of good fantasy films that just to mine. A lot of different things to mine. Dreamscape. Ooh, that's a good one. What's that other movie? Altered States. Altered States with William Hurt. With Thunderbolt Ross. That's a good one. Oh, Tatiana, you are in for a treat when you watch Explorers. I suggest you watch Explorers because it is fun. I also suggest you be 8 years old when you watch Explorers. Be 8 years old when you watch Explorers because then you will experience the maximum joy from that movie. I really loved that movie when I was 8, 9, or 10 years old. It's just so much goofiness and ridiculousness. Tatiana, treat yourself and watch that movie as soon as you can, maybe over the weekend. But be 8. be a child when you watch it. Altered States. It's so intense. I think it's an interesting choice that the song Take On Me by Aha emulates the Altered States video. Very bizarre. Altered States, man, that freaked me out as a kid. It was just so freaky. I didn't get it. Although I freaked out when William Hurt would just turn into that mush monster and he would be like, "Whoa." Sensory deprivation makes me go like this and turn into a weird mushy mush monster. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate your company. I hope that I bring a little bit of, I don't know. I hope that I could bring you a nice bowl of sugar for your next cake that you decide to bake at home, neighbor. SSSSSSS. Well, and he plays a genius. He's good. That's Joaquin's older brother. Joaquin and River. Joaquin's original name, his first name, or I think his middle name, or whatever their hippie parents called him, they called him Leaf. There's several phoenixes, and all of their names are naturally occurring bodies of water and things like and parts of nature. Summer, River, Leaf. Yeah, Joaquin's Phoenix's real name is Leaf. He went by Leaf Phoenix. So if you watch the movie Space Camp, like I did when I was a kid, Leaf Phoenix isn't that. Leaf and Joaquin Phoenix are one and the same. I think that's probably a universal trait for right now. Things are a little bit out of focus. Things will start to come together pretty soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a nice time. I'm going to try to get back into focus for you guys. There you go. Nope. Hey, is it? Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Stay clean. Don't do anything you don't want, that you don't have to do. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. and you don't want to do anything you don't have to do. That's not true. I mean, you cannot want a clean house, but you might have to. So be careful. And yes, the Phoenix family is fascinating, and I'm going to say that 10 times fast. Goodbye. Godspeed. I love you. Aristotle, full throttle, you row in the know with the fro.